Kyle Finnegan returns to Detroit in what is the Tigers' biggest offseason move so far.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Thursday, December 11th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome all. Happy Thursday here as we approach the end of winter meetings. By the time you listen to this, they might already have been concluded. Usually, the Rule 5 draft marks like the last scheduled event for winter meetings, and people start heading out on Thursday. So on tomorrow's show, we'll kind of recap the week that was. Not the worst winter meetings of all time, but very far from like super exciting and active as well. So we'll kind of highlight all that and talk about what the Tigers still need to and, well, either not do or to do the rest of the winter. On today's show, we are going to end by talking about some of the big news from around the league. We'll talk, obviously, about Pete Alonso to Baltimore, some other rumors and stuff as we head into the end of winter meetings. We'll also talk about the Rule 5 draft that was on Wednesday afternoon, what the Tigers gained from the major and minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft and what they lost as well. But we are going to start off by talking about the return of Kyle Finnegan, a 2-year, $19 million deal for the right-handed reliever that the Tigers acquired at the trade deadline in 2025. So pitched, obviously, for the last 2 months of the season and then into the postseason. Did have an injury where he missed most of the month of September, was back for the playoffs. This new contract has been rumored for, I guess, since the season ended, right? There's been rumblings about mutual interest. We've talked about it on this show. Evan Petzold of the Freep has reported a few times since the Tigers season ended that Finnegan liked pitching in Detroit and had interest in returning, and that the Tigers had interest in bringing him back. The contract is for 2 years and $19 million with bonuses and incentives. The most it will be is $20 million, so we can get another about $1 million in bonus money there based on a plethora of different things that I'm sure we'll find out at some point. There are no opt-outs and no options in the deal. It is a straight-up 2-year deal, cut and dry, no twists and turns and caveats and whatever. Just a 2-year deal, which I guess these days you don't see as often maybe as you used to. So the Tigers and Finnegan are in agreement. He'll be on the team in 2026 and in 2027, barring a trade. Finnegan had a 3.47 ERA in 2025 with a 1.11 whip. Those are pretty solid numbers. They're not, stellar, superstar, best reliever in baseball numbers, but they're far from poor. And he was one of the best relievers for the Tigers down the stretch, where once being traded to Detroit, he became an elite, high-end, unbelievable, production and numbers from a closer. In 18 innings with the Detroit Tigers in 2025, he recorded a 1.50 ERA and a 0.772 whip. In August alone, he had 14 1/3 innings of 0 ERA baseball. He was acquired at the deadline and did not allow a run for the in a Tigers uniform until September. And that's pretty remarkable. Had a 0.42 whip. His K rate skyrocketed, just shot up once he became a Detroit Tiger. Only walked 4 batters in the entire Tigers regular season. So in those final 2 months as a member of the Tigers, only walked 4 batters. Didn't do very well in, I guess you can technically say in September, although he threw 3 2/3 innings and then got hurt. So not sure how much you want to take out of that, but did give up a handful of runs in that short sample size at the start of September. Did come back for the postseason. Did well in the wild card round against Cleveland, only threw a couple of innings, but was shutout ball in both. Did poorly in Seattle through 3 or 4 innings in that series, and gave up a handful of runs there as well. So that's kind of the breakdown on his 2025. I mean, ultimately, like, this is a guy that throws 96 miles an hour and has a great splitter. And those two things paired together are going to work more times than not. The reason why he was so good for the Tigers and why there was a big uptick in his performance and production is because Fetter and Fetter, Lund, Nieves, bullpen guy, I'm sure was involved in it to an extent as well, but they adjusted his pitch usage. He started throwing a lot more splitters when he came to Detroit. He was a fastball heavy guy because he has pretty good velocity, right? 96, 97 miles an hour. And the slider and splitter were nice to just like keep hitters honest. Well, he came to Detroit and started throwing the splitter, I mean, at one point more often than he was throwing the fastball. And it saw a big increase in swing and miss. And because he saw a big increase in swing and miss and strikeout, he saw a big increase in his production, a big decrease in his earned run average. He just turned 34 years old relatively recently, so next year will be his age 34 season. 2017 then obviously will be his age 35 season. I like this move. I think it's a little bit maybe on the expensive side in a perfect world, like 10 mil AAV for a reliever that for most of his career has had around a 3.5 ERA, maybe a million or two more than like you'd ideally like, but that's getting super nitpicky. It's the cost of doing business, man. You have to, we'll talk about this again with Pete Alonso at the end of the show, but you have to you are never going to sign a free agent that is coveted and good and be like, wow, we got him for a steal. There's 29 other teams that are all bidding on the same people. You're going to have to put your money where your mouth is. And I feel like they really made it clear early on in the offseason, the Tigers did, that they wanted Finnegan back, and they worked out a deal. And I think that that's a good thing. Clearly, he liked pitching here. He had the best half of a season he's ever had as a Major League Baseball player. And the Tigers get a guy that hopefully is a solid back end of the bullpen, high leverage pitching option for them for the next 2 seasons without having to necessarily break the bank that like a Devin Williams or an Edwin Diaz, would have cost them. Want to put a bow on this conversation. I want to talk a little bit more about Finnegan, kind of his role on the team going forward, the nuance with this signing. Is it, does it leave a door open for more additions? Is this all they're going to do in the bullpen? All that kind of good stuff. We'll talk about that right after this. First, though, got to talk to you all about our friends over at Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it is going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. You pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets located within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. The price you see is actually the price you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, and we will, of course, be back tomorrow as we put a bow on one of the more famous weeks of the MLB offseason and talk about what the Tigers still need to address. So thank you for tuning in and making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up and go to the next level, which is ad-free. You can join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Tigers with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. So lockedonpodcast.com/Everydayer Club, and you can find your team and become an Everydayer Club member today. Today, talking about Kyle Finnegan's return to the Detroit Tigers organization. Talked about how I liked the move a little bit before the break. I want to expand on that a little bit more. I think when you're looking at best case and worst case scenario for a deal like this, best case is obviously, he pitches like he did for the Tigers in the second half for the next 2 full years. And you get a proverbial, dominant closer that I've referenced for the last few weeks that the Tigers don't have. You get that level of production for, way less than what those high-end closers make. You get them for under 10 mil AAV. Worst case is it was kind of more of a flash in the pan in the second half. And he's been around a 3.5 ERA literally every single major league season he's pitched. So that's why a deal like this, even if it's, I don't know, maybe you're pessimistic on the signing or something, which I don't know why you would be. He was great for Detroit last year, but even if you are, it's like this dude's floor is like a 4 ERA, which is certainly not going to be worth almost 10 mil a year, but it isn't going to be unplayably awful either. So the fact that he has that high floor and can consistently at worst be that mid 3 ERA reliever, you're going to take that and run with it. I think this is a good move for Detroit. I think fans should be happy and pleased with the signings, or with the signing rather. And, Finnegan, I think he will likely be one of, if not the best reliever on the team next year. If you're trying to build the bullpen on December 11th, you get some, velocity, some swing and miss, and some high leverage experience that the rest of the bullpen really doesn't have. It's a win. It's a win for the Tigers. They are better for signing him in 2026 than they would have been if they did not. I also think that if this is the biggest signing or the only noteworthy signing that the bullpen has this entire winter, that I will probably be frustrated. That's not to say that that's anything to do with Finnegan. I just think this bullpen is not Kyle Finnegan away from being good, or being really good, I guess I should say. Again, I like him. He was great for us. Hopefully the tweaks, that he made allow him to be even better than, he ever was in Washington. But this bullpen had Finnegan and Vest in it down the stretch last year. I guess it missed Finnegan for a couple of weeks there in September. But this bullpen already had Vest and Finnegan and had really poor production for most of last year. I said this a few weeks ago, but the ceiling of what this bullpen can accomplish is limited through the production it gets from its high-end relievers. Will Vest, around a 3 ERA reliever. Finnegan, for most of his career, around a 3.35 ERA reliever. Now, again, you make adjustments. Everybody's always making adjustments. If he can be a 1.5 ERA guy over 2 full seasons, then that's fantastic. And that's awesome. And we're all hoping that happens. I hope I'm articulating this well. I am in no way, shape, or form upset at the addition. I'm celebrating it. I think it's a great ad. And I think the Tigers roster is better than it was, 48 hours ago before he was a Tiger. Well, before he was a Tiger again. But I need a handful more. I need more. I need more. This cannot be, Scott Harris can't get in front of a microphone in spring training and go, well, what do you want from me? We brought back Kyle Finnegan. So like the bullpen, we did address the bullpen. Look. Or like, oh, we signed Drew Anderson and we brought back Kyle Finnegan. So like the pitching staff is way deeper than it was. We added those players. I need a lot more. This bullpen was really poor for a majority of the 2025 season. I guess I'll put it this way. Right now on both sides of the ball, all the Tigers have really done this offseason is bring back two people that already were on the team in Glaber and Finnegan, and then sign Drew Anderson, who pitched in the KBO the last 4 years. That's their offseason. The new faces are limited to Drew Anderson. And again, there has not been a lot of uber aggressiveness from around baseball outside of the Dodgers and the Orioles as it stands right now. So I'm not, making any declarations about what the offseason is or isn't. Just saying, this is a good start. It's a great start even. I love Kyle Finnegan. Great start. Give me some more arms because this bullpen kind of needs an overhaul based on what we saw in 2025. In terms of role for him, I mean, as it stands right now, I think he's the closer. I don't think that's too much of a debate. It's either him or Vest. I love Will Vest, but I think Finnegan probably has the highest ceiling of any reliever on the Tigers roster, or maybe even in the Tigers, of any reliever in the Tigers organization. He's been a closer before. He was the closer down the stretch when you had both of them. So I'd imagine, don't think it's rocket science. Before he got hurt there, he was the closer again. He almost had 40 saves in 2024 and has over 100 in his career. I know Hinch doesn't do like the real true, closer thing, but like, I think it probably makes sense with him. So, for as much as I want more reliever help, like you could do a lot worse of a two-headed monster than, Vest and Finnegan in the 8th and 9th inning in 2026. So today the bullpen got better. The swing and miss got better. The velo got better. The high leverage pitching experience got better. And hopefully there's more to come on top of that. Speaking of relievers in the Tigers organization, the Tigers lost one in the Rule 5 draft to the Colorado Rockies, who selected with the first overall pick in the Rule 5 draft, RJ Pettit. RJ Pettit, for those who are unfamiliar, has been in the Tigers system for 4 years now? 4 years? He's 26 and went to college. So yeah, probably about 4 years now. I remember, I want to say the first draft I covered as host of this show, RJ Pettit was taken. He was either the first or the second. 6'8", 300 pounds. Has actually been on the program before. I interviewed him back in his draft year. So, 3-4 years ago now. The Tigers did not take anyone in the Rule 5 draft, as is common practice for good competitive teams and good competitive rosters. The rule with the Rule 5 draft is if you take someone in the major league portion of it, they have to stay and remain on the major league roster for it's a very specific date every year, but it's usually a majority of the upcoming season. If they don't, then you either waive them or send them back to the team that they were already a part of. So if he has a 20.5 ERA in April and May and the fastball doesn't look very good, then he could be back in the Tigers organization at some point this year. I don't think that'll happen, though. RJ Pettit had a 2.44 ERA across double and triple A a year ago. Had really good strikeout numbers in triple A as well. He's got a solid mid-90s fastball. There's obviously a very projectable and durable, body type there that a lot of people and scouts look for in pitchers these days. Like I said earlier, 26 years old. It'll be really frustrating to me if he ends up being really good because we need bullpen help, as I just spent the first 20 minutes of the show complaining about. And if they let one walk for nothing, just freely walk out the door because they didn't add him to the 40-man roster a few weeks ago, and he goes to Colorado and ends up doing well, that's going to be pretty frustrating. So there's always a chance he returned, like I said, but I really think he's gone. And that there's two reasons for that. One is I think RJ Pettit's good at baseball. And I think at a very simple level, if you want to strip down all the like politics and like decision making at a minimum. If you have that, odds are pretty good that they're just going to hold on to him because the Rockies don't have much talent. And I guess that is my second part, is that the Rockies are so bad that I mean, what are the odds that he does so poorly that they're going to look around and go, we really need to give someone else in our minor league system an opportunity in the major leagues right this second over him? That if they make it through the year, they can just find a way to put him, through waivers and send him down to the minor leagues after next season. So like it's, I would be pretty surprised if he came back at some point. I wish him the best of luck. Hopefully he does well out there in Colorado. Gabe Rebos, as we talked about earlier in the week, I'm sure has worked a lot with Pettit, and so I'm sure that went into the decision making of the Colorado Rockies. The guy who has been in charge of the Tigers pitching development at the minor league level for the last 4 years left for Colorado like 48 hours ago, and then now they take a Tigers reliever with the first pick of the Rule 5 draft. Probably not a coincidence. So rooting for him. There's also a minor league section of the Rule 5 draft. The Tigers lose a handful and gain a handful in that. We will discuss those names right after this. First, though, got to talk to y'all about our friends over at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what making live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, momentum swing, every highlight moment, and so much more. Live betting is the best because you can tell when the game starts to shift and get in on the action. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or momentum flips after a turnover. There's live spreads, player props. You can even bet on next touchdown scores and drive results. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. With FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, in the minor league section of the Rule 5 draft, this is all via Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic. We love Cody here. Go check out all of his work at The Athletic and at Tigers Territory. He put out a post where he just kind of summarized everyone the Tigers gained and lost, so I'm just going to copy off him and read that really quickly. The Tigers lose Austin Murr to the Phillies, Archer Brookman to the Braves, Travis Kuhn to the Blue Jays, and Danny Serretti to the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Tigers gain Luke Taggart from Colorado, Jan Caraballo from the Giants, John Stankiewicz from the Twins, and Yandy Gomez from the Angels. So not too much analysis, obviously, on any of the guys that the Tigers gained, but we will keep an eye on them throughout the 2026 campaign. In terms of what the Tigers lost, I kind of liked Austin Murr, just a versatile, athletic dude. We'll see if he can maybe make a name for himself and move up the system a little bit quicker in Philadelphia, but I'd imagine that's more of a depth play for them. Danny Serretti, another guy that has kind of had some decent seasons over the last couple of years for the Detroit Tigers. So wishing all of them the best with their new teams and with the players rather that the Tigers gained. Obviously welcome, and hopefully they can make a mark for themselves as well. That's pretty much it from the Tigers side of things. In terms of news from around the league, the biggest news on Wednesday, obviously, Pete Alonso to the Baltimore Orioles. He sets an AAV record for first baseman, the highest paid single season salary by a first baseman in the history of Major League Baseball, and the Mets lose out yet again. And there's a couple of things to take out of this. One is that the Mets are going through it at the present moment. That is a tough 24-hour stretch to lose Diaz and Alonso in less than 30 hours. That's brutal. I think it's interesting that the Mets, for all of the crap they've gotten for from other fan bases. And maybe it's more of like a point of envy where like the Mets are just like, oh, they'll spend more money than anybody by, $100 million and they don't care and like whatever. Yet they lose Edwin Diaz by $3 million to the Dodgers. And then they lose Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso has been like the face of the Mets, him or Lindor, I guess, really since DeGrom left? Or like since DeGrom was last fully healthy with them, I guess. Like, I mean, that is a pillar of that franchise and a core member of that franchise. And for them, the wording of the reports is just so strange to me for an ownership group that's supposed to just like, oh, we don't care how much money, whatever. It's just like the exact wording, I think, was they never even made a formal offer to Alonso over during winter meetings because the negotiations between all the teams that were in on him just got to a point where they were uncomfortable. What are you talking about? Uncomfortable. Excuse me. Uncomfortable with what? You have the richest owner in baseball. I don't know. I know that you don't want to just like throw money around just to do it. Okay. I understand that, but Pete Alonso is one of the best home run hitters in all of baseball. And now the Mets, who already had a frustrating year, well, at times, they kind of had a roller coaster of the last 2 years, but already had a frustrating year, now lost, inarguably two of their best players. From Baltimore's perspective, I think Tigers fans should pay mighty close attention to what is happening in Baltimore. And the reason I say that is because 4 years ago, the Orioles were viewed as this young up-and-coming team that made the postseason and had the best farm system in baseball, and everybody was a can't-miss prospect, and they were just going to come up and be absolutely amazing, and they won 100 games and whatever that was, 2021 or 2022, and they were just going to own baseball for the next 5 years. That has not even come close to happening. They've had some injuries for sure, but they've also had some players just not perform as well as they were once believed to be. Rutschman's a solid example. I still love Adley Rutschman and think that he's going to be have a really nice career over there, but the offensive numbers have gone down significantly since the beginning of his career. Grayson Rodriguez now traded because he just can't stay healthy. He was supposed to be the ace of that team going forward. Right? Nothing is a guarantee. And so the Orioles finally got to a point where they said, okay, clearly we're not just going to be able to promote all of our prospects from within and just build a juggernaut. We're going to have to actually spend money. And now you see they are one of the more aggressive teams in baseball this offseason. This is already their second edition. They bring in Taylor Ward. They bring in Pete Alonso. They break an AAV record for Pete Alonso. And now they're heavily interested in a lot of starting pitching. There's all the reports are that they're in on Framber and they're in on a handful of the starting pitchers on the trade market as well. So nothing is guaranteed. Young players are never guaranteed to, be sustainably productive. And you're going to have to actually spend money to build a sustainable product. And I think the Orioles are finally realizing that. Some other trades, or not trades, some rumored trades that may or may not happen. Ketel Marte continues to have a lot of smoke surrounding his name. The Red Sox seem to be very heavily, aggressively pursuing him. I think he would be like an MVP candidate in Fenway. Brandon Lau continues to be a popular trade target, as well as Brennan Donovan, who I think in a perfect world the Tigers would like, but I don't think they'll be in on him because I don't think there's really too much room for another second base / utility infielder. But walks a lot, had decent pop last year. Good ball player. So we'll see what happens there. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow as we put a bow on the week that was. I appreciate you all greatly. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.